Welcome to the CounterAct YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us for this short video tutorial.
It's Phil here from Border, and I've got Tarveen with me as well.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. So this is a little webinar we're just going to run on ReadSoft EDI. We are recording this, so if you haven't got time to, I think it's going to be about half an hour. If you haven't got time to listen to it all, don't worry, we'll put it on our YouTube channel as normal. So you'll be able to watch it at your leisure whenever you want. Okay, so we're going to talk about, just quickly talk about EDI and what it is. So what we're talking about today is really receiving supplier invoices electronically. This is what we're talking about with EDI. And the traditional way of doing that is that way. You receive an invoice electronically from the supplier via one of the EDI portal providers. And that's typically TrueCommerce and Freeway. So you're not receiving anything in paper, you're just receiving a stream of data. What happens then is that information gets loaded from the portal, the TrueCommerce Freeway portal, down into CounterAct, and CounterAct will load that invoice in, attempt to match that invoice against the purchase order that you've already generated, and if it matches, it will process it automatically. So that's the sort of typical EDI process that exists now. The benefit of that is that it obviously one of the benefits of EDI is it means you're improving your efficiency and your speed. You're not handling paper invoices, so you need less staff to handle all your purchase invoices. Will reduce your paperwork because EDI will provide you with a PDF archive. Hang on a minute, I'm just trying to go to the next. There we go. The disadvantages of traditional EDI is that it's quite expensive because you have to sign up with one of the EDI providers, and it only works with certain suppliers. So it only really works with suppliers that are prepared to send invoice information electronically, and you are limited with that. You can't pick them all up. So it's a bit of a halfway house. So what we're going to talk about today is another option, and it's called ReadSoft EDI. And what ReadSoft is, it's a cloud-based EDI processing package. And what it handles is all invoices. So when I say for paper-based invoices, it could be an invoice your supplier sent to you by paper, which you then scan in and send up to the cloud, and Tarvin's going to talk to you about how that works. Or it could be an invoice the supplier sent to you via an email or via a PDF. What it does, it will handle all those. So you can basically, using this system, you can handle all your supplier invoices in this way. And we'll talk about how it works. It's quite flexible into how it's priced because it's a cloud-based system. It's a pay-as-you-go. So the more invoices you process, the more you pay, but you get a cheaper rate per invoice. You pay per click, and one click relates to one invoice. It gives you all the benefits of EDI. So it gives you the automatic processing of invoices, and it gives you an archive of your invoices as well. But it means you can but it's got the benefit you can handle all your supplier invoices this way. So we'll take you through how all that works. What we can do, if you're interested in this after today, is set you up a test to try it. It's probably the easiest way. And what we would also do for that is work out how many supplier invoices you typically process in a year, and we'll work out how many clicks you need to buy based on that usage quantity, and then we can give you an individual quote based on that. There's a little bit of setup and training fee as well we usually build up, but once you've got over that, you're really using it. And it's like everything, once you've tested it and played with it and got used to it, you'll find you'll get quicker and quicker at actually doing it. So what we'll do is Tommy's going to actually sort of take you through the process of actually how it works, and then hopefully it'll start to make a bit more sense to you.
Okay, I'm just going to try and get rid of this bit at the top first. See if that pops back up. Right. I'm just going to quickly go through the setup that's required. So first and foremost, we make some directories that are in your live and test system. This is obviously in the test system so that we can provide you with a demo environment, I guess. So it's all pointing to test, and there's no risk of it doing anything in your live system. So it's a good way for you to get to grips with the actual process, whether you're happy with it, and to actually go through your data, making sure that that all is accurate and makes sense. The actual ReadSoft Online Connect program needs to be installed onto your Windows server and configured. Usually this is done via a screen share, so we request for you to give us access. So for us to set up a test environment, then when you're ready to switch over to live, we'll need access a second time to just switch all the settings over to the live system for you.
Do you have to have a Windows server, or could you run it on a PC if you wanted to?
All of them are on Windows Server at the minute.
Right, okay. We'd have to check.
But we'd have to check, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then when I say that we need to check your data, I'm referring to master data. So this is probably a new term for you guys. Master data is an XML extract of supplier information. So the specifics are your CounterAct supplier code, the supplier name, address, and the postcode. They're the 4 pieces of information that need to be accurate and in your CounterAct system. They then get extracted overnight and pushed up to the ReadSoft portal so that they can then learn, because that's what it sort of identifies the supplier from. So provided all that information is correct, you should get a better efficiency rate. So what we've done, we've got that built in to be an overnight program for you. So as and when you add suppliers, in fact, it just updates. You don't have to worry about ReadSoft being out of date. It'll be up to date every night. So once that's done, we move on to the testing stage. After a bit of training, the testing that we had for most recent customers has been fairly straightforward, I would say, because it is the system does tend to learn the layout of the invoices. So the more people that take this on, the more familiar it gets with the invoices or the invoice structural format. What's the term?
It's a multi-tenancy system. So what ReadSoft is doing is when you send an invoice up to the cloud, it's saying, okay, what does that invoice look like? It's that looks like an invoice from that particular supplier, and I know that supplier always puts their order number there and always puts the total there in a particular place. And what it does is it reads that information, and because we've got a number of customers already using this, and you're all merchants, and you all tend to buy from the similar sort of suppliers, it is already learned a lot of the templates for most of the suppliers. So you're actually going to get the benefit, a lot of the work, a lot of the pain that some of our other customers have been through to sort of learn the system. And we'll sort of show you how that works once we demonstrate it.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is just show you what is available already in CounterAct. So what you're probably already doing, I think is one way to put it. So if I try.
So we'll show you the sort of manual process, isn't it, really? That we're a bit, aren't we?
Oh.
Here we go.
I'll just escape and I'll just do it this way because I haven't got time to mess around too much. So normally what you're used to seeing, obviously you're in the CounterAct system. You normally would create the purchase order as standard. There's no difference there. You book the goods into stock by entering the stock receipt. So if I was to just pick, these have all been received, but just for argument's sake, if we just pick one old one and say yes. Obviously at this stage, so the first step is that you're having to search for that supplier. You're having to then select the order that it's relevant to, which was a screen before. You're then having to enter a delivery note, which is manual, and then you go over to the items tab, and then you're having to receive all. You can click the button to mark them all as received. So that enter stock receipts is all standard. And then we don't want to save any changes because I was just showing you what that process is. The next step is once you've got that purchase invoice from your supplier, you need to enter it into the system. So here you're having to search for it. So searching for your supplier. So if I search for Rocker, if I search for supplier and I type in Rocker, you'll find one. We'll just take the old one that's already been received. Again, you're having to click that one, say OK, and then enter all the details on this screen and move through it. So it's quite manual. The enter purchase invoice stage. So what we're trying to do by introducing ReadSoft is to give you a bit more efficiency. So you're only having to enter the purchase invoice, you enter the stock receipt, and that's it. The actual check purchase invoice stage, you shouldn't be using that as much. It's going to be rare if you do have failures and so on, or if you have to dispute an invoice for any reasons, you will have to go through this manual process of check purchase invoice. But ReadSoft will actually negate that the
Yeah.
use
So
of
ReadSoft takes that process out, does this? You're not having to enter the purchase invoice, you're not having to check it.
Yeah, so a lot of that type and clicking is all cut out.
Yeah.
So that's what your current process is probably within the business. So I'll go through how ReadSoft behaves. So if we jump from here, so there's three main ways to upload an invoice into the ReadSoft portal. The first one, and the most recommended one, and the most popular, I should say, is to send the invoices across via email. So we provide you with a ReadSoft configured email address. You can either forward emails with their attachments, with their invoice attachments, onto this email, or you can supply that email address to your suppliers if they're willing to take that on board, so they can send all of their invoices to this email address. Or alternatively, if you've got a batch of invoices that go to maybe a designated address or inbox that you guys have, then you can install, I know on Outlook there's a tool that you can install that will actually send all the invoices from that inbox out to the specified ReadSoft email address.
Yeah.
So that will do it in an individual fashion, because they do need to be sent one by one. But it's automated and it's in the background. And so that as and when you're ready to actually address those invoices within the ReadSoft portal, they're already sitting there. So that's the best way, and that's what I think majority of our customers are actually using. Second way is to drag and drop or save scanned hard copies to a shared folder. So what I mean by drag and drop is that you may find that your current processes, or people are set in their ways, they actually get the invoice, they get a ton of emails in.
Well, you might get them paper. You might just get invoices via paper and scan them in, mightn't you?
Yeah. So the drag and drop feature is mainly for if you do have emails, say you have emails and you've got promotions attached, leaflets and whatever, you actually have to sift through those ones. And then if you want to save all the attachments into a folder, you can do it that way. Or if you are getting the hard copies, like Phil was saying, and you're having to scan them in, we can point ReadSoft to that folder, so that in the background it's always searching that folder and uploading them automatically in the background.
So all you're doing is scanning them in, and you can forget about them then. Once they're scanned in, they'll go straight up to the cloud.
So the benefit with these two is simply that you do it once, and in the background it's constantly running. And then when you're ready to log on to the portal to address them, then you can do that whenever you like. The third and final option is to browse to the file. So I'll show you that. It's really not recommended, simply because for batches it doesn't quite work, because it takes a while to actually upload the files. Not really used, very rarely used at all, but the option is still there. Okay, and it can do, so the documents itself, it can be PDFs, JPEGs, it can be anything. It's really flexible in that sense.
It can be multi-page invoices, can't it?
Yeah,
Handles
definitely.
all that stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. So as I said, we've got the 4 stages here. So you create the order, you send it out, supplier then sends you the goods, you enter stock receipts in the normal fashion. I'm just stressing here that obviously delivery notes are important, because that's one of the fields it will use to try and match against, along with other elements, but I'm just saying delivery note is one of the top ones. And then the supplier will send you an invoice. So I've gone through the 3 ways that you could use to upload the invoice into ReadSoft. The next step is the verification step. So when I'm talking about verification, I'm talking about the approval. So you would need to then, the ReadSoft will extract the information automatically, but you need to then approve whether or not it's extracted the right information. So this is the only sort of manual step I would say that's involved. But with time, as you're teaching it, the format of the invoices, it will begin to learn. And so the actual manual process within this verification step actually is reduced quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's a multi-tenancy system, the people who are taking it on now, which is fairly late compared to some customers, there's not as much.
There might be many suppliers it hasn't seen before. So what it's doing is it's OCRing. It sees an invoice, a PDF or a scan of an invoice. It reads it and says, okay, I know who that invoice is, it's that one. And it looks in particular places and says, I think that's the order number, that's the VAT total, that's the goods total. And what Tanya said, you click say, yes, you're right. That's the verification process. And we'll show you that in a second.
It then exports that invoice, that extracted information that it had, it then gets exported to CounterAct, and then you process. You have to go within CounterAct, within graphical. You click on process EDI invoices, ReadSoft EDI invoices.
And that's exactly the same process as if you were going for the normal EDI where you receive an invoice electronically as well, isn't it?
This one's just specific to the ReadSoft ones. The processing stage is what is actually this is the matching stage, I would say, is another way to refer to it. Once it's gone through that, you then print out an EDI log. Now, the EDI log is simply a way for you to have a view of what was successful and what wasn't. So you can see you can monitor your success rate. You can actually see any failures and why they may have failed. So if you've entered the wrong order number, if the purchase order may be wrong or whatever, the delivery note number may not match and so on, it will give you the relevant information. Maybe the goods amount were out and that you can dispute it thereafter and so on. So you've got all your failures detailed and what you need to do to then address them in most cases. You may or may not be familiar with the fact that you can set suppliers to be delayed. So if you have suppliers that are really keen on sending you an invoice even before they've even sent you the goods, or you've had a chance to book the goods in, and you happen to put that invoice through ReadSoft, ReadSoft will then be like, oh, if it can't find the if the goods haven't been booked in, it can't find the delivery note and so on. It's a failure in essence. So what we could do, there's two things that we've done to address this. You either set the supplier to have a delay of X note, like 2 days, 3 days. So then EDI will only attempt to match off that invoice against the purchase order in 2 days' time. Alternatively, if the invoice is already on the system and you've already put it through ReadSoft, it will then attempt the invoice once, and it will attempt it up to 3 times before it considers it to be a failure. Once it is considered to be a failure, it will then print out to a designated printer, so that you can then manually go through the check purchase invoice stage or dispute it or sort out the invoice as required. And any that are successful are then available on CounterAct for you to then view, so that they sit against the original purchase order. So effectively, you've got an archive, I guess, built into the system.
So what the EDI process is really doing is saying, okay, I've had an invoice come down from ReadSoft for this supplier. Can I find the purchase order? Yes. Does it match the invoice? Yes. Okay. Have the goods been booked in? And if the goods haven't been booked in, then it will say no. We haven't had the goods, so I'm not going to pass that through for payments. That's the delay time we were talking about.
And it will have a delay status. So basically, when we're talking about the EDI log that I was referring to, I'll show you it as well. I'm not sure we'll have any delayed on there, but.
But if the goods have been booked in, and obviously the value of the purchase order matches the value of the invoice, it will pass it through for payment.
And it will successfully post it as well.
And you can set criteria, can't you? If it doesn't match exactly, you can set
You've got a tolerance rate, so there is a control file linked to this. So there's a tolerance of percentage and an amount.
Yeah.
So if you want, I think most people have like a is it £1 or 5% or the other way around? I can't remember, but you know that's configurable for your ReadSoft settings for the EDI.
So what we find with lots of customers, they'll start even with EDI or ReadSoft, they'll start off and their match rate initially will be a little bit low to start with, and that is usually because they've not been accurate in their purchase order, pricing's not been accurate, or they're not booking in goods correctly or at the right, they're late booking goods in, and they'll create failures. So what ReadSoft does do, and EDI, is it does create a discipline for the business to be accurate when you raise purchase orders, because then you get a higher match rate, and the higher match rate you go, the more efficient the whole system becomes, doesn't it?
I also find that with the lower match rates that we get with the initial, when people who originally take this up in the beginning, it's the verification step that they fall down on. They just think that, the fields are all populated, I can just pop it through. Really, you're trying to teach the software where it should be looking for that information. So it may be that it's the first time it's come across a particular format for a supplier. And in that case, you need to just make sure, double check that the information does actually make sense. Like in the purchase order, in the order reference box, it has actually got an order reference and not a telephone number, for example, because then that's one of the fields it'll try and match up later on in CounterAct. So it's kind of common sense. But once you get to grips with it, and which is why we kind of push for the testing stage.
You get quicker and quicker, don't you? The more you do.
Yeah. You can set it as well if you want it to automate through. If it if it successfully populates all the fields on the right hand side, I'll show you in a moment, you can set it to ping that invoice straight through, so you don't actually have to verify it. To be fair with you, no one's actually taken that up. Even some of the bigger customers who have got ReadSoft, they haven't taken that up. They like to view the invoices,
Yeah.
but it's customer preference and it's configurable. So if you want it to work like that, we can set it up.
So we'll show you ReadSoft. So all ReadSoft is doing is getting the information out of the invoices, really, kind of taking the information out of the invoice and sending it down to CounterAct, and then CounterAct is doing that matching process.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go into ReadSoft. So you log in, you have your own login. So I've got a demo login available to me. It's recently had a change of interface, so you're met with that initial sort of screen, and then any invoices that you have, they'll sit here. Now, obviously, I mentioned there were 3 methods of uploading the invoices. If you were to do it manually, you'd go to the upload feature. You'd then have to select them. You can either drag and drop it here, or alternatively, you can browse through and load it. But it takes longer this way. I wouldn't really recommend it. So you've got the stages here that are available on the left-hand side, and you've got all the invoices.
So these will just appear as you send them up.
Yeah.
As they get emailed up, they'll just appear in this screen.
Yeah, it populates itself. Yeah. So track ID is a new term, not a new term for you guys. It's just a unique identification number that ReadSoft assigned to the document. We've pulled that through into CounterAct because we did feel that when you're looking, if an invoice fails for whatever reason and we need to track it backwards and so on, it is actually quite relevant and it helps to diagnose problems, and if it helps us overall. So we've incorporated that into CounterAct. So obviously you've got the received dates, you've got the file names, the status. So we've got document pending. So if I just make that a bit bigger, so as you can see here, I've got document here that's saying it needs manual separation, and the rest of them just need verification. The reason this is requiring manual separation is because it's a multi-page document. So if you have one attachment from a supplier that has about 10 pages in it, and out of that there's about 7 invoices that are relevant, so it will have this sort of icon available here. It will tell you that it needs to be manually separated, so that you can then go in and separate that document manually, and then move on to the verification step. It will identify that has more than one page in it, so you can do batch uploads. These individual documents, you've got the buyer invoice number, fairly straightforward. This is all that the system has been able to extract this information before we've even got to the verification stage, and that's just because it's familiar with the layout and the information that's available in these columns. Okay, so what I'll do, if I choose this one, I hit start. So I know my document's really simple, but I just kept it simple for the demo, really. So the supplier name, it's identified that it's Rocker instantly on its own, so I don't have to do anything there. I'm clicking tab, or you can click through if you wanted to. It's got stuck on the invoice number, so it's not sure what the invoice number is. So if I just double click on the RAD 785, it populates that, and it's now green. It's happy with that. It's picked up the rest of the information. We're happy with all of that. And it's picked up the net value, VAT, and the actual total. So there's nothing more for us to really question on that invoice. So I can click OK. Once I click OK, the document is then exported from the ReadSoft portal over to CounterAct. Now if I can do another one. That's a single page again. So here it's picked up Rocker for some reason, so I've had Rocker on there before. So if it's picked up the wrong information, if you feel, then you need to enter the right information.
There you go.
So as I'm typing, as I got to like the 3rd or 4th character, it already made a suggestion for me, which I can just select instantly. So now I'm teaching it that this layout is actually for the North insulation. So again, it can't find the invoice number, so I'll just double click on the invoice number. Happy days. Delivery note. There we go. The rest of the information it's picked up here. And OK. So that's how it would behave for the single page invoices that are uploaded. And then if we've got a multi-page here. So
Wow.
it will display. So obviously in this instance, you'd have loads of pages listed here. But I only did a 2-page document just for this. And it's not great. It's not a great layout or anything, so forgive that. But basically, all I'm trying to demo here is that if these 2 pages are one invoice, then I'm just clicking the space bar, and that then considers it, that makes it one invoice, and then you can hit OK. And that gets processed as one. You've also got the icons down here. So if you've got, I know some NMBS ones, I think they've got like a cover page that has just random information that's completely irrelevant to the invoice matching. So you can actually delete the pages out should you need to. And again here, if you want to unjoin that page, you can. If you want to join them together, you can click that. I prefer the space bar, but it's up to you. And then you arrow key across to move on to the next document and so on. Here we've only got the 2, so there's not much for me to sort of worry about. But hopefully that makes sense. There is a document on the manual separation that I can send out.
But we'll do what we tend to do is do a bit of targeting, does some training sessions.
Yeah,
I'll
sit it with you.
And it's like everything. Once it will learn, it learns the format of the individual suppliers. So hopefully you haven't got too much manual intervention. Really, you're just clicking OK. But as you go through, you'll find you'll get quicker and quicker processing them.
Yeah. So the ones that I did process, which were these ones at the top, it says here document exported, so that means that it's been pointed towards the test system, our demo system, I should say. So what that means now is that I need to now go into CounterAct.
So they've sent them down to CounterAct.
Okay, so this is the exports happen. We're happy with that. I'm now going into purchase ledger, EDI invoicing, and processed ReadSoft EDI invoices. So do you wish to proceed? Yep. 2 files found. Fine. And then we print the EDI log to see how successful that batch was. So here I'm only interested in seeing the ReadSoft because that's all I'm demoing today. Obviously, as you saw before, you can have it in an Excel spreadsheet if you want. We've got the layout so that it's nicely split out. So that's it's up to you. If you don't want to split, you don't have to have it, but we feel it works really well. And okay, view on screen. Okay, so as you can see, we've got these ones were done today. Invoice posted to such and such, track ID. It's got all the account numbers here, supplier invoice numbers, the purchase order numbers in this column, and all the relevant information as we move on. So, and then if you go down to the bottom, didn't like this one. Purchase order is not for this supplier. So I obviously made a mistake on that one somewhere.
So that's rejected that one?
That's rejected that one because I didn't put in the right information, because I think it was an off one and then I put a rocker or something. That was just me. But as you can see at the bottom, it tells you that it's been failed. So that one would then be pushed out of the system, printed out for you to then address manually.
So that invoice would just print out automatically, and you just go through the normal
check purchase invoice.
Normal check purchase invoice process.
Yeah.
So it's only spitting out the ones that fail. The ones that pass are just going straight into the system. And it's, as we said, the ones that pass, it's going through that. Does it match? Is it the right? Does it match the purchase order?
Right values?
Has the goods been booked in? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just batch it.
So if you only get part of an order through, and you've got 2 delivery notes, it can handle that as well. So I wouldn't worry about that. It just doesn't do credit notes.
No.
And what's the other one? It doesn't do credit notes.
And expense.
Expense, yeah. Expense invoices.
Expense invoices. So it's really for supplier invoices we're talking about here.
So if I wanted to now, so this is why, obviously when I did the verification step, I didn't really check all the information correctly. So it was my error. So it wasn't the system error, it's my error there. So that's why it's important to make sure that when you're at that verification stage within this portal, that you're actually making sure that the right information is actually being extracted. So I pick that one, hit start. Make sure that you're actually it's the correct supplier. I picked up the wrong one before. Okay, so if I minimize that, I said before that you can actually view that invoice now against the accounts. So if I wanted to go to, if I just pick, well, I like Rocker, so we'll go to Rocker, shall we? So CounterAct, inquiries, display supplier details. I'm interested in seeing this supplier, see what's outstanding. Because this was done via EDI, they stand out like a sore thumb. You can actually tell instantly.
Right, yeah.
And so you can just choose whichever one. So the 15th of March today, select that one. It's got an identifier there, purchase order number at the beginning. Tells you that it's been put in by EDI. When I click view, I've got the document there.
So that's the other big benefit, isn't it? It's the archive. It gives you an archive, so you not have to worry about storing paperwork.
Yeah.
Straight nice in the system. If there's a query, it's there. You can just go and look for it and find it.
And all the items and so on. So all of that is great. It's all built in at that stage. You also have an archive built into ReadSoft as well itself onto the portal.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, that's up to you. If you feel that it's something that's of benefit, then by all means that you can use that. But that's pretty much how it works. It's very, very straightforward. The idea is to teach it beforehand during the testing stages, so that when you get to the live environment, there's very little for you to do. You just need to approve the fields that get extracted.
Yeah, and you'll just get used to processing your invoices on this screen, rather than entering them manually into CounterAct. And we've got customers who've used it who have been using traditional EDI and this as well, and have got rid of the EDI, the traditional EDI, and just moved to this instead, because it handles all their supplier invoices, and they find it just as quick and as easy to use. And we've had customers who have handled significantly more invoices with less staff as well, because it's just saved them.
Well, yeah, we've had customers, especially customers who are growing and sort of acquiring business and whatnot. They found that it's been a real benefit to their business. They've not had to actually invest in more people, because the software does the job for them, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in some efficiency, we can set up a demo for you, or a demo environment for you to have a go, or just to have a chat.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, just let us know. And as I say, Tarvin said we can set you up a demo of it. You can have a play with it, and if you're interested, we can always give you some pricing as well, and take it from there. And again, you say you will benefit from the fact that we've had quite a few of our quite big customers and some of our smaller customers. Again, this is available. This is priced really for businesses of all sizes could use this now. Can take advantage of the work that's already gone into it. So I'd be very surprised if there are many suppliers that you would deal with that haven't already been dealt with on this system. So it works pretty well. To be fair, it works extremely well. So that's it really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's everything that I can think of.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Just to say, we'll put the recording of this up on the our YouTube channel. Normal way. As I say, if you have any questions, just email support and we'll come back to you. And thanks for watching and listening, and hopefully see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us on the information displayed on the screen for further assistance.